what keeps most men stuck is what other people think. And there are levels to it. Particularly the inability to have balance with or even distinguish between performance and play. So I'll use myself as an example. My dad died when I was 14, right? And as he was on his deathbed in hospice in his living room, I had just started my freshman season of high school football. And up until that point, I played 1 year of Pop Warner back in 5th grade. It was a complete disaster. But I was a soccer player. I played soccer from 4th grade all the way to 8th. And out of the blue, I just promised my dad that afternoon that I was going to make it to the NFL. I was going to be a professional football player. And I remember what he did. He had had multiple strokes that time. There was a brain tumor the size of a tennis ball in his head, and his body had just resigned. And so he couldn't speak at that point. But all he did was just sort of make, I guess, what could be considered a scoff, and just rolled his eyes. And I never really realized why he did that. I pondered that for the next 20 years, quite frankly. And so that begs the question, if I hadn't really played football up until that point, what gave me the idea that I'd be able to perform not only in high school, but into college and eventually into the pros? And it goes back to what I said earlier, is that what keeps most men stuck is what other people think. And if you've read my book, you know all about what I'm talking about, and that's default. And for me, default was a lot of victimhood. My default was. And that led to not feeling good enough, feeling unworthy, always seeking approval and accolades and wanting to be validated and heard and glorified and all of those things, because I lived in a neighborhood called victimhood, right? And so I think that's where it came from. This idea that no matter what I was doing, I needed to perform. I needed to be successful. And I became addicted to that success. And so I did have a good high school career, good enough to earn a scholarship to play in college. And I had a couple of tryouts. I had a pro day at Eastern Michigan, then I had a pro day at Grand Valley State. And the director of player personnel and I from the Green Bay Packers were talking as the draft went on that year, which was 2014. And let's just be honest. The only reason why I was able to speak to the director of player personnel from the Green Bay Packers is because he and I went to the same high school. But needless to say, nothing came of the draft. And after that, I started seeking success in other outlets other than athletics. Now, eventually I found my way back to athletics, but I had opened up a very successful gym. And by the time I got that off the ground, I dabbled with powerlifting, became a champion in that. And then I became a legitimate sprinter, transforming my body into that type of athlete. And around we went in terms of performing in all aspects of life, be it business, sex, notoriety, all of these things, until the spring of 2023. My wife and I were newly married, and I was just a few months removed from giving my life to Christ. So that was March 22nd, 2023. And an acquaintance of mine got a hold of me and told me about this new league that was being formed on the east side of the state in Detroit. And they were touting themselves as a developmental league for the CFL, the NFL, and other professional leagues. And he said, would you be interested? And I thought, oh, this is it right here. I mean, I haven't played football in 10 years. I'm still in phenomenal shape. I'm fast, I'm strong, I'm fit, because I was still competing as a sprinter at that time, running in NCAA meets and such. And so I thought, what better way to do what I've always wanted to do, or what I told myself that I wanted to do, that is, and that's keep the promise I made to my dad. And I could get paid for it in the meantime while I'm trying to get there and provide for my family? Hell yeah, right? So went to the tryout, number one player there, said that we were going to be selected in the top 5, $20,000 signing bonus that would come with it, and then all that stuff. And I'm just thinking, I am on my way, right? And throughout that time being from the end of June until October, my marriage was on the rocks because I wasn't providing. I was pursuing dreams instead of duty. And we got 3 months behind on our mortgage. I was becoming more and more estranged from my family. And I wasn't growing the hell up, to put it bluntly, because I was way more interested in dreams rather than my duty as a husband, a father, and a provider. And that's when it all came crumbling down. It was the night before the draft that I got a text from the league owner saying that the draft and the entire season, for that matter, had been canceled. And at that time, I had finally started to get my crap together. I was a sandwich artist at the local Subway just a few miles down the road from our house. And so I went to my shift, came back home, and my wife had waited up for me because she knew I was bummed. And I just took my boots off, sat on the bed. My elbows were on my thighs. And I said, all I wanted to do was play. And that's when it hit me. And my shoulder started to bounce. My wife scooted across the bed, placed a hand between my shoulders because she thought I was crying. I was laughing. I just looked over at her and I said, all I wanted to do was play. And that's when everything changed. And I think that's why my dad rolled his eyes when I made that promise to him. Because I think what he was thinking was, son, if you want to play football, then just go play football. You don't have to reach the pinnacle of success when it comes to a child's game. If you want to play it, then play it. You don't have to perform for me in any way by reaching the mountaintop of the gridiron. Just go have fun. Be childlike. Play. But what do most men do? They're childish by always trying to perform. And they get addicted to success. And that blinds them, especially husbands, from providing and protecting their family. And when I made that shift from performance to play, that's when God really started to move in my life. It was Christmas Day of 2024. So just, a few weeks later, a couple months. And by this time, I had already ascended to being a manager at that particular, or the manager at that particular Subway. Not rich by any means, but we were gaining traction and starting to get our way out of poverty and debt, for that matter. And just out of the blue, the head coach of a professional football team, not a developmental league, but of a professional football team in Muskegon, which is about 45 minutes from where we live here in Jenison, Michigan, said, hey, we're having tryouts on the 5th of January. Would love for you to come. And I looked at my wife, I'm like, what do you think? And she told me to go. And you might be wondering, after what you just put them through all that summer, what the hell was she thinking? I was doing the things that I was supposed to be doing. Sacrificing. Putting duty before dreams. And when I did that, I'm telling you guys, like, things happen quickly. Things happen quickly. It actually wasn't a couple months after that. It was another year. So at that time I was already a district manager. So excuse me, I got to go back and say that over. So it wasn't just a couple months later. It was 14 months later. But by that time I was a district manager. So I'd already ascended from manager to multi-manager to district manager, and now we were making good money at that point. And so that's what prompted my wife to say, "Hey, now you really can go all in on this thing if you want it, because you've done the work, right?" And that's the whole point of, or the secret, I should say, and it's this. When a man stops chasing his dreams and starts chasing his duty, his dreams chase him. And I'm living proof of that. It wasn't until after I started chasing my duty as a husband, as a provider, as a father, as a head of the house, that my dreams started coming true. Amazon best-selling author. After I got my job at Subway. Now I'm with Taco Bell, but professional athlete. After I got into the industry that I'm in now. Right? And it's not a sexy industry, it's fast food, folks. But I'm telling you, when you stop chasing your dreams and you start chasing your duty, your dreams chase you. When men stop trying to perform in every area of their life and start adopting a childlike sense of play when appropriate, it brings tremendous balance, in my experience. And I think that's the way that today's faith-driven, creative, athletic, fun-loving man gets unstuck and stops worrying about what other people think, is when they stop performing and they start playing. They go from childish to childlike. They stop chasing their dreams. They start chasing their duty. Their dreams chase them. And then you wonder why you ever worried about what other people think in the first place. Because the truth of the matter is, they weren't ever thinking about you in the first place anyways.